Hello, my name is Chinere Naji, and you're welcome to the Law, Finance, and Economic Policy Talk Show, where we dissect laws, guidelines, policies, and issues that affect Nigeria's economy. We've decided to carve out a segment where we dissect the lives and careers of lawyers that are contributing their quota to the industries that make up Africa's economy. Join me today as we welcome our guests. On today's episode of the show, we have Ayobami Omisakin. Ayobami is legal counsel at Interswitch. Interswitch is Africa's pioneer fintech company. Ayobami, thank you for coming on the show. It's really good to have you. So let's just dive in directly. Why law? Like, why law? Was it a childhood passion? Was it influenced by parents? Just tell us why. Why did you choose law?
Left my parents, I've been a doctor, so definitely my parents. Why law? I wanted to do something different. I mean, at the time, everyone was going to the science class, and I just wanted something different. I didn't like it. So in terms of why law, not like I knew that, oh, there was technology law, there were all these aspects of law. So it's not really like I made an informed decision. It was just something like, well, let's do something different, and yeah.
So how did your parents react to you switching from what they wanted you to do, medicine to law? What was the reaction?
They were not happy, but they respected it.
Okay, because it was law.
My dad didn't want law.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he felt he had to do with a lot of things, a lot of vices that he didn't like.
Okay.
So he didn't feel that was the profession he wanted his son to go into. But he respected my decision that, yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting.
It was the art class bit. I mean, art class is for the dullards.
Okay.
Science is for the brilliant ones.
Yeah.
So going to art class meant you couldn't make it to science class. So for someone that was as good as a science student going into art class, that was difficult for him to accept.
So of all the options, you could have been, you could have studied business management, you could have done economics. Why law specifically?
Because I didn't know better.
We'll get back to that.
Looking back now, economics is something that I would have loved to do as well. I mean, we're in this finance space now, so yeah, it's something I would have loved to do. Yeah, so maybe if I had known better, maybe. But then it's not, how do I put it? It's not like I'm regretting law. I'm enjoying it actually. Okay. Yeah, so, but yeah, economics would have been a very good second option.
I get that. So what was your experience studying law at university? You attended the University of Ibadan. What was your experience studying law? Was it something you actually enjoyed while studying, or it was up until practice you started enjoying it?
No. So I wasn't even going to practice law until I entered the law school.
Okay.
Yeah, so University of Ibadan, law then was tough.
It was tough, yeah.
I didn't enjoy it at all. I hated going to classes. I missed a lot of classes, actually. I felt it was, how do I put it? A lot of lecturers were just teaching us what we had in the textbooks or online.
Yeah.
I felt going to class should be different. You should get something different from what you can get elsewhere. And that wasn't it then. So, yeah, so I didn't enjoy it. I was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities. I was in the press.
Tell us a bit more about the extracurricular activities.
Yeah, so I was in the press for my all. At the point, I became the editor-in-chief of my press organization. And I think I devoted a lot of time into that. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, you write about things happening in school. You create a lot of trouble. People don't like what you write. And yeah, so that was something I really enjoyed more than even going to classes and all that. Then the second bit of it was fellowship. I was very involved in my Christian fellowship, and I was one of the executives then, so that kept me busy beyond classes.
How do you think being a member of the press team helped you become a better lawyer? Have you used those skills now?
Definitely. I think the big one is writing. It makes you a better writer, and for a lawyer, not just better writer, it helps you to communicate better. And for a lawyer, I think that's very key. Whether you're just drafting contracts or you're going to court and drafting briefs, legal arguments and all. Yeah, it just makes you, and then it gives you that, it helps you to have a critical mind. As a press man, you are always asking questions, why this, why that, and I think that's the same for a lawyer as well. So
okay. I think I agree. So I want to know, describe yourself fresh out of law school. Who was Ayobami fresh out of Nigerian law school? What were your thoughts? What was your plan? just that phase between, when you drop the pen from your exams and before you actually start NYSC. How was that process for you, and who were you at that point in time?
It was very confusing. I think that was one of a word I could use to describe myself. I was confused. And maybe because I never thought I would practice law.
Okay.
And then you get into the law school and you see a different curriculum. You see that, oh, this is actually interesting, and all that. So maybe if I had time to prepare, no, I want to practice law. And I mean, from when I was in UI, maybe I would have had more plans and better plans. And also coming out of law school, I just had like a year to say, oh, let me do this thing. And so I could see people getting into law firms, some were going in-house, and there was that confusion. Do I apply to the law firms? Do I go in-house? They always say, oh, you have to do law firm first because you don't really get experience when you go in-house. So it's better to go in as an experienced counsel than just coming from school. Then there was the masters. Okay. Oh, do I go abroad and just write my masters? And also it was a lot of things happening at the same time. So, and again, the class of law or the practice area, we're not even sure. Do you want to be in litigation? Do you want to go into corporates? So, I mean, there are a lot of decisions to be made. But I think, looking back now, just take a step at a time. Okay. Yeah. I mean, whatever you can do now, just do it, and then you get to figure out the rest on the way. Yeah.
So tell us a bit about the steps that you took. So what was your first career decision? Where did you work first? Okay. Where did you do your NYSC? Okay.
So, there's this extension period during law school where you're supposed to intern at a law firm and then in the courts. So while I was interning at the courts, I met a judge. Okay. I mean, you're assigned to a court, right? Yes. Yeah. So one of the courts I was assigned to, I mean, he really liked the students, so he always gave us time. I mean, after sittings, you would get to ask him questions in his chambers and all that. So after law school, before the results came out, because I really wanted to be a judge then. Yeah. So that's the thing. I mean, things change over time, right? Yeah. So I wanted to be a judge then, and I felt like, oh, this man is like a role model. Like, I really like the way he was very sharp and all that. So I went to see him after law school. Immediately I go back home after law school, I went to see him. I would sit in court then, just to hear cases, see how lawyers argue and all that. So after the court session, I went in to see the judge, and he was like, oh, you are done with law school, you are preparing for service. It takes some time for us to go to be deployed. And he said, oh, I want to write a book, I think, land litigation in Nigeria. Will you be my research assistant for that? And that was my first job. Yeah, immediately after, even before the service.
Okay, so you're one of the lucky ones. They're already engaged even before then. So did you do that even post NYSC?
I did that post NYSC. So I did that for 7-8 months.
Okay, so that's where you served?
No, I didn't. I went to other states to serve. Okay. So I served in the Ministry of Justice. Tried. I mean, during service was in Jos, right? So I had to travel. So during service, I was involved in legal aid. I was head of litigation. Again, I really wanted to do litigation, right? So I was head of litigation. We did a lot of cases, pro bono cases for the indigents. I think at the time we were able to get out. When I was leaving, we got like 20-some people out during that period while I was at Ministry of Justice. So I had time to do other things. Then after service, I went back and I worked with this man for a couple of months before getting a job in Lagos.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
So working with the judge, I think that was a very good starting point for me because it involved a lot of research. I was reading, my job was to just read case law and summarize and share with him so that I can use this for his book. So that gave me insight into how things are done, in the court. How do you lose cases? And again, I was working in the court, I was also listening to cases. So how do you lose cases, and it was more than your argument. I mean, there are a lot of things that will go on in court that so it gave me that insight, and I think it really helped me in terms of foundation. So I knew how to do research. Yeah, and that's very key on this part. Yeah, so it really helped. Yeah, I'm really happy that happened. I mean, and it was by chance. I just went to see him, and I didn't know this was going to come out of it.
It's funny how a lot of things in your career are designed by chance. So after NYSC, did you move back to Lagos straight away? Or what was your next step after that?
Yeah, after NYSC was to get a job. I mean, everybody wanted to come to Lagos. My parents stay in Abeokuta. So moving to Lagos meant I needed to get a job. There was no one to stay with, so I needed to get a job, get an apartment, and all that. So that's why I traveled back to Abeokuta instead and continued with the judge until I got a job. But then I was always doing interviews in Lagos, so the judge gave me that flexibility because he wanted me to move to Lagos as well. So he gave me that flexibility. Oh, when you have an interview, just let me know so you can go. And yeah, so did a lot of interviews, a lot of interviews.
I can relate.
Yeah, before I got a job in Lagos.
Okay, so tell us about the experience moving. So for law in Nigeria, Lagos is the big city where the top jobs are. So what was that experience coming from Jos, Abeokuta, coming into the bubbly city of Lagos?
And then when you add Ibadan, because I schooled in Ibadan for my university, so all these cities are calm. And then you're coming into Lagos that is rough and so it was. I think maybe because I had a lot of friends in Lagos already, so that prepared me in terms of the mental grit that I needed. That prepared me that it's rough, you just have to keep going and all that. And so it was stressful. It was stressful getting used to. I mean, you stay in traffic for hours. You are trying to get to work early. You wake up late, you're trying to get to work early, and you realize that you can't even make it. Or you're trying to get to court early, and so it was stressful.
I can imagine.
Yeah, because you can't even afford to stay close to where the offices are. So you have to stay far away then and commute early in the morning. And then going back in the evening as well. And when you get to work, you're supposed to focus. You can't sleep. I mean, you're still sleepy and all that. But what really helped me to settle in was because I had a very good boss, and he helped me to settle down.
So tell us a bit about where you were working then.
So I was working in Lekki Phase 1 with Slingstone LP. So the partner is Abimbola Ojenike, and it was a really good boss. It was a really good boss. So so it really helped me to settle in, and it was patient. You know, when you get, I mean, you're coming from law school and you think you know everything, right? And then you get into practice and realize that it's completely different. So you need someone who understands where you're coming from and then knows that, you are good enough, but you just need more time. And I think a lot of people don't get that. So they just drop you in the middle and expect you to perform wonders. But my boss was patient, so I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I would write briefs, draft contracts, and then when he corrects them, I'm seeing red, red line.
We've all been there.
But he was very patient, and he helped me to grow. So he understood that, this guy is moving to Lagos, he's staying far away, and so he caught me. I mean, I was almost always late to work. I was always, and once in a while I would say, you should try and come in earlier and all that, but it wasn't like, you're going to get queried, I'm going to deduct from your salary and all that. It was never like that.
You need a lot of grace in those early days.
You need a lot of grace. So I was just lucky to get that.
So was it here that you started to, because coming from the person who wanted to do litigation, was it here you started to develop your law for the other side, corporate, commercial, and then slowly into finance?
Is Mr. Abimbola that caused everything. It was the one. So the firm, Slingstone, was a lot of litigation, but we also had tech clients. So we're always getting contracts, startups, private equity for them, and all that. So that's opened me up. So prior to this, I had always thought is litigation or company secretary, right? I didn't know there was finance. I didn't know there was all these other practice areas. Yeah. So working with him gave me that insight. And again, I think interest is controlled by what you know. It's controlled by what you know. So if you don't know that there's a possibility somewhere, you're definitely not going to be interested in doing that. So I think that opened my eyes, and I realized that there are other areas. I hate company secretary. So that was never going to be it. So it was either litigation or company secretary for me. And so when I saw that, I could advise people on deals. You want to buy a company, you want to merge, I could advise on those deals. And I got to do one or two while I was with him. So I developed that hunger for that part. And yeah, I think that was where it started from. Like, I want to do fintech. I mean, the first thing related to fintech I did was to advise a client who wanted to get a license. And I was like, what's fintech? Like, I had to call my friend who was working in Lekki at the same time, and we had to sit down and read, what's this fintech about? And then the licensing regime wasn't so clear then. So it was everywhere. So we had to keep reading and reading just to, and I still remember the first things I wrote about fintech, like to the clients, and if I write down, I won't pay myself, I won't pay any money for it.
I have the same feeling as well. So that's very interesting to hear. So there was a time that on LinkedIn you went a bit viral. So you shared your story. So from my understanding, you decided to cold turkey one day, leave your job. Obviously, you probably had thought about it. And then that coincided with the whole COVID period, and you were out of job for a couple of months. And just tell us how that was for you. So you've done the struggle, you've finished NYSC, you've come to Lagos, you decided to take a leap of faith on yourself, and then step out, and then COVID hits and everything happened. So how did you get the confidence to be able to go through that period? And just tell me about that period generally.
Okay, so I think I got to a point where I wasn't sure of what I wanted to do next. I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue doing litigation. So litigation now, you could always say, criminal, and then there's the commercial aspect of litigation. So you're always doing litigation for commercial related cases. And so I wasn't sure if I wanted to be there or I wanted to do in-house. And I felt I needed to take a step back and just figure out things. So at that point, I was even ready to stop doing law totally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like if I'm not interested in this, let me do something else. But so it was more of trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to really do. And yeah, so it was 6 months. Yeah, I think that was April. That was when lockdown, I think that was around the lockdown period, to October. Yeah, so those 6 months, how did I survive? I did a lot of praying. I did a lot of praying. I got closer to God. And I think that really helped because it was easy to get depressed. I mean, there was a lot of uncertainty outside normally because of COVID. And then you are there where you don't even have a job. And people are telling you it's a tough place to be during COVID, to be jobless. Because companies are not looking to recruit. They are even trying to consolidate and downsize and all that. So what made me pass through that period was just God. I relied, so there were times when I was unhappy and I would just pray. And then I realized that I felt better afterwards. But the funny thing is, I did a lot of interviews then. And I think what helped was, there's COVID, nobody wants to meet anyone. So everything was virtual. So all the firms that would require to come and write tests and all that, that was out of the window. So it was just, let's have a chat, have an interview, and let's see. And so I did a lot of interviews then. And I think that's what I wrote about in the LinkedIn post. Did a lot of interviews, had a number of offers, though they were not really what I wanted. So I kept on waiting. But in terms of finances, how did I survive? Funny thing is, Mr. Bimbo was sharing deals with me. Oh, wow. Yeah, so it would, Ayo, can you work on this for me? And then he would pay. you will pay me, and that was how I was able to get by. Yeah, and so that's why I keep saying it's very instrumental to where I am now. So, yeah, I think basically it was praying and then always trying to. I mean, I had interviews. There was a top firm I interviewed with, and I didn't get the job, and that was my dream job. Like had always been my dream job. So when I had the opportunity to interview there, I thought that was it. That I'm finally going to get this thing, and then it didn't work out. And I think for a week or 2 weeks afterwards, I didn't even apply. I didn't apply to any other place. But it's so that journey. I feel there will always be disappointments. It's what you do afterwards that matters. So you can't escape from being disappointed. I mean, you can't avoid it. Things will always happen. You are expecting something, doesn't come true. But what do you do afterwards? Do you just give up or do you keep trying? And so I had people around me that kept pushing me. People like Mr. Bimbo as well that kept pushing me that just keep trying and all. And eventually something clicked. Yeah.
So what was your light bulb moment in that period that finally said, okay, I've had some thoughts and this is what I want to do? Well, how did you walk yourself through that process during that long period?
Okay. So it was, again, I said something earlier that if you don't know about something, you're probably not going to be interested in it. And so those 6 months, I mean, you are just home. You get to do a lot of reading as well. You're reading different things. You're reading people's posts on LinkedIn and all that. And I realized that I was more interested in private equity, finance. And that gave me, I mean, I didn't see it as a chore, reading about them. So I would download different materials and just read through. And I didn't see it as I was stressing myself. And so I realized that, there's probably something here. So technology and finance,
So from there you started, what was your next journey? Where was it next for you?
So I got a job in Olajido Ewole. Yeah, that was October, after the last 6 months period. And the department was IPT EJM. So it was intellectual property, technology, employment, and global mobility. And so that gave me an opportunity to do the tech I had always wanted to do. That was the next thing afterwards. So as an associate, you realize that you work across different teams. Different senior associates are calling for you to work research for them. And so it gave me, again, it opened my eyes to a number of things. And Olajido Ewole is also a big firm. So they had clients that had deals that, I mean, were big enough, and it puts you on your toes. So you always had to read and research. And then when you have a partner like Sandra Ewole, who is very knowledgeable and vast, you know that you can't just send anything to her. So that's, I think in the early years, building that knowledge base is very important. It's very important. So even if the money is not coming in, but just keep building that knowledge base, because going forward, that's what you eventually sell. And so this, even though it wasn't intentional, not like I planned it or strategized or anything, but that journey gave me the knowledge base I needed.
Great. So from law firm, when did you decide, okay, it's time to go in-house? I've gotten enough experience. I've owned my craft. I'm an expert in this field. It's time to go in-house. How did you make that decision?
Again, it was my drive for finance, and I really wanted these deals where the companies you're trying to merge, you're trying to acquire shares in another company and all that. And definitely you can do that from the law firm. You have clients who are doing that, and you can always advise. But I wanted to see how it was from the inside. I wanted to see how it was from the inside. So I'm the law firm. I'm just seeing it as a client. I know what the law is, but have I really developed that business acumen? So this is what the law is. And funny thing is, a lot of business leaders know what the law is.
Yes, they do.
So they don't need you to tell them what the law is, right? They want you to tell them, so how does this law apply to what I want to do? And how can I continue to do what I want to do without breaking the law? That's what they need. And I felt that I wasn't going to get that in the law firm. No matter, that was my personal opinion anyways, that no matter how long you spend in law firm, you're not going to get that. So that was when I decided to, like, I would try in-house. Yeah, yeah, I would try in-house, and then I saw a number of opportunities. I applied, and one came up. Yeah.
Okay. So when you were thinking finance and thinking in-house, was your thoughts fintech? Because you're at a fintech.
Yeah.
Were your thoughts fintech, or I'll go into an investment firm, or I'll go into, what were your initial thoughts?
The thought was financial.
Okay.
Yeah, investment firm.
Yeah, investment,
Yeah,
yes.
but again, I don't know if this happens to everyone, but 2 years now, I could be interested in something else, totally. And that's why I'll always like to be nimble. Like,
Yes.
okay, so this is Ayo 2 years ago. This is what Ayobami wants to do. 5 years from now, Ayobami wants to do something else. So why can't he move into that space?
Yes.
Yeah, so then leaving the law firm, I wanted to do investments.
Yes.
And then when I got to investment and I was doing it, I felt, oh, let me try fintech.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so, yeah.
Okay, so great. So how has the fintech world been for you so far? How do I phrase this? What's your experience as a lawyer in a fintech? So, there's a difference. Fintech is really different from other industries in the sense that many other industries have had the opportunity to develop over years. They have solid rules that guide them, solid regulation.
Yeah.
But for fintech, it's been developing and it's still developing. Yeah. So what is it like being a lawyer in the fintech space? Can one really say I'm an expert in fintech law? What is it like? Do you think that that's different from being in-house in any other organization?
Yes, it's different. It's different, like you said, because other industries are already standardized,
Yes.
right? And then you have the fintech that is just growing. Of course, it's been around for years now in Nigeria, but you realize that there are still a lot of areas that need improvements in terms of regulatory overview. And so working in the fintech as a lawyer meant that you should think out of the box more than ever, more than any other industry.
Yes.
You need to think out of the box because some of the things you're even trying to do, there's no law that applies to it yet.
Yeah.
So, it's one thing for you to say, oh, I want to go into this space, and these are the laws that apply, right? There are a lot of products that the fintech companies are coming up with that regulation is trying to catch up, right? Regulation is just playing catch up with these products. So, as a lawyer in that space, number one, think out of the box. Yeah, you must know the laws that apply. Then, if something is going to come out that doesn't have an applicable law, how do you have that responsibility to the society. So if I have a product and I see that, oh, there's a lot of gaps that could cause people to lose money, for example, just talking generally, and there's really no law that applies. So even if it happens, there's no CBN cannot come and say, oh, you guys flouted something and we're going to prosecute. But you have that responsibility to society to say, oh, even though we don't have, okay, so for crypto, for example, so at a point, CBN had to come out and say, oh, banks shouldn't interact or deal with any crypto funds and all. But before that, there was really nothing that regulated crypto. Even the CBN guideline doesn't regulate crypto, so to say.
Really doesn't.
Yeah. So if you are in the crypto space, how do you protect consumers from the inherent risks that are bound? And so as a lawyer, not just thinking for your company, or how do we make money? That's is key. But also thinking, this product is going out, but how do we insulate our users as much as possible, even though there's no law that mandates us to do it?
Yes, and how do we even preempt regulators?
How do we preempt regulators as well? Yeah. So fintech, I like the fintech space because it keeps you on your feet, you keep thinking.
Definitely.
And then you meet a lot of smart people as well. A lot of smart people that, they're trying to drive innovation. And there needs to be a balance. So you are the balance. You provide that balance. Yeah.
So there's something that I've been sitting in a lot of interviews of late with new wigs, that's new lawyers, and I see that's craze to want to go into the fintech space. Yeah. And I think it's because, fintech sort of came as a leveler and it enabled even young lawyers to be able to rise up quite fast. Unlike our traditional industries where, there's protocol, you need to spend your years and pay your dues. But there's something that I also find that they're missing. So, a lawyer that is 1 year post-call is quick to use the lingua, I'm an expert in fintech law, or they're quick to just jump on fintech. Yeah. And for me, sometimes I find that that may be a mistake. You're just starting your career and then you already boxed yourself to think that fintech is the only avenue for your growth. So what's your advice for young lawyers first in terms of building expertise? Because we can see that you started from, you wanted to do litigation. I also thought I wanted to do litigation, but far from it now. So you started from litigation, but with the opportunities that you had, you allowed yourself to, develop into who you are. And like you said, it might still change in 2 years. So what's your advice to young lawyers in terms of how to pick a niche, number one, and number two, how to actually build some form of expertise in fintech to be able to say that you understand this space?
So, as a young lawyer, I mean, fresh out of law school, I mean, it's good to know what, again, different things work for different folks there. It's good to know what you want to do with your life. And if you have enough information to make that decision, fine. But for many of us, because we don't have enough information, it's better to be open, right? Don't box yourself into a space. If you have opportunity to do litigation, get it done. And then if a few months' time you have a deal that has to be private equity and all that, read about it and do it. And I think having that wide knowledge in different areas helps you to now say, okay, maybe after 2 years, 3 years, oh, this is what I really like, this is what I really want to do. So we need to be as flexible and adventurous as possible. Yeah. If, again, like you said, a lot of young lawyers just want to do tech, and a lot of them reach out to me as well on LinkedIn. Oh, I want to do fintech, I want to do tech, and that's great. I mean, when I was at that level, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Exactly. So that's great. But you have to be open as much as possible. Try different things. Don't limit yourself. So it's good to say, okay, I want to be a fintech lawyer. Do whatever you need to do to be an expert in that space. But also be open to other things. Even though I'm in fintech right now, there are other practice areas I'm also learning about, right? So it's an ever-learning curve. You just keep going, try to learn this, try to learn that, and then at the end you look back and realize that, okay, based on this knowledge I've acquired, this is what I really want to do. And I've noticed that there's a knowledge gap in the fintech space. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm a fintech expert. And then you speak with a person and you are not, like, the person has not really done much in fintech, right? So there's a knowledge gap. And there's, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm not sure there's so much in terms of trainings for the fintech space. So, I mean, even in law school, they teach us about corporate law generally, then they do civil litigation. But there's nothing that really speaks to these specific practice areas. And that means a lot of lawyers are coming out not prepared for this fintech space. So hopefully going forward, there'll be more opportunities for people to learn.
And I know that you're working on a few things in relation to that, so we won't spill too much.
Yeah, that's why I said hopefully.
Be on the look for Ayobami. So I want to go a bit personal. So what are your hobbies outside law? What are your hobbies?
I'm quite boring, so I must warn everyone. I'm quite boring. So hobbies, I like football. When I realized that I couldn't play football much, like I wasn't that good, so I just stopped playing and did a lot of watching and analysis. So I listened to shows. I think I even do that more than watching football. So I listen to shows where they analyze tactics from different coaches, try to understand the philosophy around it and all that. So that takes a lot of my time. My spare time, actually, not like the little time I have left. Course. Yeah. So then I watch a lot of documentaries. I like things around history. Yeah, so those things fascinate me, like the pyramids of Egypt, for example. So I could sit down and listen to different opinions and thoughts around that. And so that's something else I like doing. And I like talking to people around inventions. Yeah, so, oh, this product is coming out. What's about it? Yeah. I just have that interest. Oh, this person wants to launch this product. I'll go and read about it. What does the product do? What are the regulatory?
That's still back to law.
That's back to law, right? So yeah, so that's But I like spending a lot of time with my friends. Yeah, so just catch up and relax. Yeah, so those are the things I do outside of work.
So what does a day in your life look like during the weekends and also during the work day?
Yeah. So 70% of it is work.
Yeah.
Yeah. 70% of it is work. I work weekends, work. Yeah, so it's apart from work, then the church as well. Um, I belong to teams in the church, so we have meetings, and then I do movies. Movies, mm, I think that has increased of recent because it helps me to relax after a stressful day. So that's typically my day to day. It has to be a very good friend that will take me out of the house. I'm more of the in-house, like I'm always staying at home. Yeah.
So a bit more personal too. You've been married for about a little over a year. How would you say your career has changed from before marriage to after marriage in terms of how much time you can devote to work? Do you find that has changed with being a married man now?
Not really.
Not really.
It hasn't. I mean, because my wife, I mean, we dated for a while before
Okay.
getting married, so she was already used to that.
So just a few more questions before we round up. So you mentioned a lot about work, about how that's 70% of your time. So how do you balance that work with life? You know, there's a place for also your health, like you
Yeah.
said, spending time with friends. How do you balance it? And I find that, you know, many lawyers tend to struggle with balancing that.
Yeah.
So they go to the extremes in terms of maybe vices and stuff. So how do you balance it? Or I know it's not perfect, but how do you, you know, take that into regard?
So I must say that it's tough. All right, trying to create that balance because there are a lot of demands from work.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think you give time to what actually matters to you. Yeah, that's a principle I work with. So, I mean, if your family matters to you, you would give time to your family. So, same as friends, I try to keep up with my friends, and it's been difficult, especially with, I mean, a lot of people traveling out. You're in different time zones and all. So I think it's going to be a continuing struggle. There's no one that's mastered it and says, oh, I've perfected it and this is how it's going to be. I mean, there are different periods that require more time for different things. So, for example, you could be very busy at work. Maybe there's a busy period for at work, and then you know that you have to give more time to it. And then there's some off-peak periods that you know that, okay, I can use this opportunity to do other things. So I won't say there's a fixed structure for me or 70% work, 10% of my time family, then all that. It changes. So depending on the time, the period, it changes. But it's something I'm still working on. Like you said, I've just been married for a little over a year.
Yeah.
So we'll get better at it. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So what does success look like to you?
Ah,
Where would you sit and look and be like, oh yes, I'm happy, I feel successful and fulfilled?
it's definitely not being a billionaire. No, it's not. I want to be comfortable. No, don't get me wrong. Like I want to be able to afford things. I mean, for my children, for my family generally. Um, but beyond that, I want to make impacts on people's lives, and I think marrying both is success to me. So it's not being at the extreme, you're a billionaire and then people can really point to something that you've done in their lives. And then it's not, you're a people's person and then you can't even take care of your family, right? So it's the middle for me. I want to help young lawyers. I think that's something that keeps coming up for me now. I want to help young lawyers. So that's why I'm quite open on LinkedIn. You message me, I always try to respond, even if it's not convenient.
So please message him.
Yeah, message me. So I always try to respond, even if it's not convenient, because I message a lot of people on LinkedIn in years ago, and I felt, I could have gotten more guidance from them. Not that I blame them. I mean, everybody is busy and they have things that that's taking their time. But I want to be that person that steps out, even though I have a busy schedule, that can contribute to other people's career growth and all. Yeah. So even my post on LinkedIn, although I've not been writing of recent, but my post on LinkedIn have always been around career growth, because I think a lot of young lawyers need that. Yeah. So.
Okay. So what next for you? What are we expecting to see between the next, you say, 2 to 5 years?
So I need to be careful because my employers could be watching this. But it's, again, like based on what I said last, I want to be involved in career growth for young lawyers. So that's something that I'm really looking at, how to create a structure for it. Could it be trainings? Could it be one-on-one mentorship sessions? That's, I mean, it's not clear right now, but I know it's something I'm going to eventually do. Then I'd also like to, I would like to have a product in the market. I think when you work in the fintech space, you start feeling like, yeah, I should be able to do this. Yeah, I should be able to do this. So that's also something. I have a few ideas, yeah, that I would like to at least put some effort into and see where it goes. Yeah.
So just our final question. How do you think that lawyers can take a more active role in shaping the fintech ecosystem in Nigeria? Because it feels like sometimes we're very reactive. And like you said, the founders know the law. And sometimes I feel like they're even better at navigating the law than we are. Yeah. So how do you think that lawyers can start to play an active role in contributing towards development of policy?
So I think we need to understand the market. So it's not about you can't do this, you can do this. It's more about how can we change lives, right? Yeah. And that is what is on the business leader's mind. Of course, he wants to make money. Yeah. The typical capitalist. But second level is how can I change lives? How can I make things better? So if I have to go to the market to buy something, for example, how can I make it easier for the society to buy these things without leaving their homes, right? So I think lawyers need to take that approach, that mindset. There needs to be a mindset shift for lawyers. So I'm not just thinking, oh, this is my client, this is what he can do, this is not what he can do. I'm also thinking along with the clients. So that business acumen is very important. Yeah. And then when you are shaping the regulatory space through policies and all that, the market insight is important. So you see some policies and you're asking, oh, what are they doing, right? What are they trying? They're going to stifle this particular market and also that insight is very key. And you can't get that insight if you don't work in this space, right? So work in this space, get experience, and then it gives you, so when you come out, you realize that, oh, you have your background as a lawyer. You know what the law needs to do. But on the flip side, you also have the background as a business person. And because you've interacted with a lot of business persons, you know how they think and how they can transform the market. So marrying this together will make you, I think, a very valuable lawyer.
All right. Thank you very much. Just before you go, describe yourself in 3 words.
I
find that lawyers usually, it's a very difficult question for lawyers to answer. Describe yourself in 3 words.
First is curious. Second is related to this, adventurous. And then third is, what would I say? So I think I should have said this first. I'm a Christian.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the first. Yeah, then I'm adventurous and then always trying to, you said 3 words.
3 words, exactly. Let's stop there. So thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you guys very much for watching. Like he said, his LinkedIn is very much open. His name is Ayobami Omisakin. Please reach out to him, but be polite.
And don't just say hello, Ayobami.
Please don't just say hello, Ayobami. Yeah, say what you want so that he can get through to a lot of people. So thank you very much. And this brings us to the end of the show for today. See you on the next episode.